So recently, Joe Rogan had Dr. Sanjay Gupta from CNN on his podcast. Let's try to look at this in less than 2 minutes. So, what I like what Dr. Gupta said, Dr. Gupta was really encouraging vaccination while Joe Rogan really wasn't. Dr. Gupta is correct that ivermectin is not proven to be effective against COVID-19. And just in general, Dr. Gupta has better medical advice. And then let's look at the good stuff from Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was right to point out that ivermectin is not only used for horses. So CNN was a little dishonest when they said that Joe Rogan was taking a horse dewormer. And the problem with that is people might get hung up on that and not look at all of the science and think that, well, we can't trust CNN to tell a small fact so how can we trust them on the vaccine in general? And that's unfortunate. And I think Joe Rogan's far better at bringing people together. Joe Rogan brought Dr. Sanjay Gupta and other people with different points of views on his show. CNN doesn't always do that. And I think if you watch Joe Rogan's podcast, he learns stuff. He's open to learning. Now, some minuses for Dr. Gupta. He didn't really do a great job explaining that. Maybe he wasn't as prepared or he got nervous. And then later on, he went on CNN and said how the news is segmented. And I think he's conceding the division instead of bringing people together. And unfortunately, Joe Rogan was saying kind of some anti-vaxxer talking points that we're not sure what the long-term side effects are on kids. And there's virtually no ingredients or no products of the vaccine that are going to likely cause long-term side effects, especially compared to actually getting COVID, because the vaccine is not going to replicate the little spike protein where the virus is going to just keep growing inside of you. So that makes natural immunity not better, unfortunately, Joe Rogan, because then this is something the anti-vax community likes to say, oh, natural immunity is better. Natural immunity just means everybody's catching COVID. Everybody's getting community spread. You're allowing the virus to mutate. If you are into natural immunity, that means you're actually doing gain of function research. Joe Rogan was also a little bit wrong on ivermectin. Yes, it showed that it can prevent the virus from replicating in vitro, but in order to get that amount of dosage in your body, when you have it in vitro, you can focus all of that just on one little spot. You'd have to take a dangerous amount of ivermectin in order to get that concentration all over your body so it can stop the virus from replicating. So that is not a good option. When Joe Rogan says that could also make parents not want to vaccinate their kids for other childhood diseases, and that's extremely dangerous. So I'm very worried and I don't think Joe Rogan is anti-vax. He just might not be he might not just be for this vaccine, but the problem is there's no evidence that it's dangerous, and the burden of proof while in early testing is on the vaccine makers. If you're going to say, well, there could be long-term side effects, I believe that should be on the burden of somebody to prove that there's anything in there that could cause long-term side effects. Now, ending on a positive note, which I can't do completely because I went over my 2 minutes, and I'm also a little disappointed that the podcast didn't bring people together and both sides didn't learn as much as they should have. But I think there's hope. It seemed like Dr. Gupta was kind of letting politics get in the way a little bit, and he again mentioned in a post interview that he was trying to bring nuance to it, and so that it almost concedes that we're too divided without bringing people together. I think he could have done a better job at that. And unfortunately, so Joe Rogan's he's not really great at science. He's getting better. He used to think that the moon landing was fake. He used to believe in conspiratorial thinking. He's starting to get away from that. Unfortunately, to not trust the vaccine to the degree that he does. And I don't know if I would consider him an anti-vaxxer. Just he's partially anti-vax because he doesn't want kids to get it. But he thinks most adults should get it, especially unhealthy people. But in order to stop the mutation and the gain of function that the virus is naturally doing, then you need the vaccine. But I do think it's positive that Joe Rogan brought Dr. Gupta onto his show. That shows that there's an opportunity for bringing people together, and Joe Rogan's actively trying to get other ideas, and Dr. Gupta was willing to come on the show. So I think that's good. I think you should listen to them both, and you'll get good science advice from Dr. Gupta for for the most part, and Joe Rogan will help bring that conversation around so people will start listening to each other. So always be willing to admit that you could be wrong and always be willing to learn. So that's my positive note. And that was more than 2 minutes. Thank you.